it seems that that strike last week certainly, created a ripple or some sort of a tear in that partnership, and that it made President Trump very angry.
President Trump has been speaking this evening on the eve of his visit to the UK. In the Oval Office earlier this evening, he was asked about the Israeli strikes which were targeting the Hamas leadership in the Qatar capital, Doha. And he was asked, President Trump, whether Benjamin Netanyahu had assured him that Israel would not strike Qatar again. He said they would not. Let's have a listen.
Well, he won't be hitting in Qatar, as I say. I call it Qatar, and you call it Qatar. You're actually more right, but actually you're allowed to go. The Emir said, you can say it any way you want, but I've always thought of it as Qatar. I think it's a beautiful sound. And actually, they've been a very good ally. And a lot of people don't know that. But he won't be hitting Qatar, but he will be maybe going after. Now, there was an article that I read in a newspaper just about an hour ago where Hamas said they're going to use the 20 hostages as human shields. They're going to bring them up from the dark tunnels, and they're going to put them in the line of fire so that if Israel goes forward, they're going to die. And I thought that was very terrible, and I put out a statement on that. You saw that.
Well, that was President Trump speaking tonight. His remarks somewhat contrast with what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu himself has said. He has been holding a news conference in Jerusalem with the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and said he wouldn't rule out further strikes on Hamas leaders wherever they are. Let's talk to Julia Manchester, national political reporter at The Hill. Good evening to you, Julia.
Good evening, Carol. Thanks for having me.
As usual, President Trump asked about a wide range of issues this evening. That Israeli strike on the Hamas leadership in Qatar, at the time, the president was saying that that was not something that he had authorized in advance, and he wasn't happy about it.
He was not happy about it, and administration officials were not happy about it. We understand that Secretary of State Marco Rubio has gone to Israel to meet with Israeli leadership. Obviously, this is very much on the agenda for those conversations, but President Trump really signaling in that response to the press in the Oval Office earlier today that he seems assured that Israel will not be striking Qatar or Qatar, however you like to say it. The president prefers Qatar, apparently, but will not be striking that country anytime soon. Certainly a very tough, blunt message, I would say, from President Trump, and a message that probably is also very much aimed at Israel right now. You know, President Trump has very much promoted himself as, a big ally towards Israel and strengthening the partnership between the U.S. and Israel. And it's already been a strong partnership. However, it seems that that strike last week certainly, created a ripple or some sort of a tear in that partnership, and that it made President Trump very angry.
Yeah, because, that meeting, the Hamas leadership were there in Qatar, which was trying to broker a peace deal, trying to broker some proper negotiations on the peace deal that was put on the table by the Americans. I mean, it appeared to be an Israeli strike designed to destroy any prospect of that deal getting anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, for President Trump, I guess looking at a personal level, he's not only trying to broker this peace agreement between Hamas and Israel and have an end to this conflict, but he's also trying to do the same thing between Russia and Ukraine. And you are seeing that the president is having tremendous difficulty, I think, on both fronts. This was a president that campaigned last year, for ending American involvement abroad and for being a president that brings peace, etc. But instead, he continues, he's very much inherited, I think, the headaches that President Biden had during his administration when it came to these two conflicts. And for Israel to do that, Israel, obviously a very big ally to the United States. It's a country that the United States, particularly in terms of defense, supports, very much financially. That's very frustrating to President Trump, and I think many American officials.
Well, of course, President Trump is arriving here in the UK tomorrow. Huge expectations here in the UK about that state visit. He's going to literally have the red carpet rolled out at Windsor Castle. But he's arriving here at a time of some turmoil in the British government. And of course, just after the Prime Minister had to sack Lord Mandelson as the British ambassador to the United States. One of our guests earlier this hour was saying that couldn't have happened at a worse time. Do you think that has created difficulties ahead of the state visit?
You know, I'm reminded of President Trump's trip to the UK, I think a few months ago when he went to Scotland. It wasn't an official visit, but he was on his golf course, had some meetings with European leaders. But one of the first questions he was asked when he got off the plane was about Jeffrey Epstein. This is the story that does not go away, and it's even found itself a way to insert itself into this UK visit, with Lord Mandelson obviously being expelled. No doubt that President Trump and Keir Starmer are going to be asked about this in the coming days during this trip. And look, I think this was a trip that President Trump was looking forward to. And this might sound very superficial, but President Trump and, quite frankly, many Americans really love the pomp and circumstance of the UK in general, in particular, the British royal family. President Trump shares that fascination with many Americans. And I think he himself was very excited, or is very excited, to be sort of seen with them, inserted into those conversations, have those photo ops, etc. But there is the chance that the Jeffrey Epstein story could very well overshadow this, and, you know, is overshadowing the visit to an extent. We'll see how it goes. President Trump will still have those photo ops with the King and Queen and Prince and Princess of Wales, of course. But there's Jeffrey Epstein is still going to be a topic of conversation in the press, I think, on both sides of the pond.
Yeah, and just briefly, Julia, I mean, the president has been trying desperately to dismiss all the questions about Epstein as a hoax, but there's more and more documents coming out.
Yeah, more and more documents. You have Democrats on Capitol Hill that are, you know, very much pushing for more of those documents to be released. You also have a lot of President Trump supporters, Republicans, conservatives, who want those documents released. They point to President Trump's comments in the past saying that the documents should be released in full. So this is something he's going to have to grapple with and probably have to respond to on a day-by-day basis, depending on when they're released.
Julia Manchester, national political reporter at The Hill. It's been great to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks so much, Carol.